reverse gear. Let's put it in first. Alright, today we're on BMW K1600 GTL, and it has an electric screen. I'll just put the screen up, might reduce the mic noise a little bit, the wind noise on the mic rather. And so this is from the BMW Inline 6, the K series from BMW, and the K series kind of has well, two distinct models and two variants of those models. So let's start with the kind of the most affordable to the most expensive. Let's start with on the bagger side of things, the K1600B. I've reviewed that 3 or 4 times now. If you search for Richard.Dunn ride on K1600B, you'll find various videos of me riding different model year versions of that particular machine. Now that's the bagger, and the bagger doesn't come with the top case. It comes with side panniers, has electric screen, cruise control, heated grips, all that good stuff, and you can buy it with a variant with floorboards. And just trying out highway pegs in this particular bike. Anyway, so that's the bagger, and I'm a big fan of the bagger, having ridden it more or less back to back with the Goldwing. It's got better suspension, it's got better brakes, it's got a faster engine, it's pretty much as smooth, pretty much as comfortable, and has better lighting. The only thing it lacks is a screen to match the Goldwing, but it looks a lot cooler with its lower screen, and you can always fit a larger one. Anyway, that's the base bagger, the B. In addition to the bagger, they do the Grand America. The Grand America is essentially the bagger, but with a touring screen like the one you see here, which I'm going to lower because it's so freaking hot today. It's 85 degrees out here. Hopefully you can still hear me okay. I'll put it in midpoint. And the Grand America has the bigger touring screen, and it has the top case for the pillion, and that's the main difference with Grand America. I think the top speed may be limited to 110 miles per hour as well. So that's the bagger side of slammed posing looks and touring. Now on the sportier side is the GT model. The GT model has taller rear suspension. It has the full higher screen, and it's the sportiest one of the bunch. It's a very heavy bike still, but if you want to throw it around like a sports tourer, the GT for Grand Touring is the one for you. And then we have the top of the range, which is this is the GTL, so it's the Grand Touring Luxury. And the GTL benefits from having the top case for the pillion, and it's a big case. It looks like it would take 2 helmets fitted with cameras and cardos quite easily. Capacious storage, and it has a lower kind of more sit-in seat to lower the overall weight of the bike with the rider prone, with the rider sat on the bike itself. And there's some pros and cons to that. If you're a bit shorter of leg, that may make and you like touring with your better significant half on the back, that will make touring somewhat easier. But if you're tall of leg like myself at 6'2", you won't appreciate the sit in rather than sit on, and your legs will feel very cramped. So it's kind of some swings and roundabouts there, I would say. Although the owner of this particular bike, and this is a 2022 current model year spec bike for 2023 still, with the 10-inch TFT, etc. The owner of this particular bike is quite slim and quite tall, and he seems to love it. He is used to owning many Harley Davidsons, so he mainly has that to compare, but He's a big fan and he really likes it. Now let's talk about some of the generic aspects of this bike. It has shaft drive, and BMW have been making shaft drive for decades now, and they have that sussed. It just works. And what you find is that the shaft drive with the gearbox and the running gear works pretty seamlessly and pretty smoothly. It just all works really well. So this engine is the inline 6 masterpiece from BMW, and it is a beautiful engine they've been using for a number of years now. The cylinder heads are canted forwards at 55 degrees to lower the overall centre of gravity, and it is a super smooth ride. The only engine with this kind of smoothness is the Honda Goldwing, itself a legend. And this puts out about 160 horsepower, I want to say, and 130 pound-per-feet. If I've got that wrong, I'll put it up on the screen now. And whatever the gear, whatever the speed, and whatever the throttle's doing, you never feel as though it is lacking in any shape or form. It always has a nice linear thrust to it, and is always effortless and relaxing to ride. The aspect that isn't is really when the motorcycle is stationary, or you get a corner significantly wrong and maybe hit a bit of off camber and gravel to boot, because then you will feel the weight. And this bike is substantial. I'll put on screen now what the weight is for this machine. And when you have to lift it off the kickstand, you have to push it around the driveway, and particularly when it has a full tank of fuel, you are going to feel that weight. There is just no getting around that weight. However, not that this cliche has ever been used before, but the weight disappears when you pull away. Now that's not quite true, right? This isn't a Street Triple RS or something. It's not 400 pounds stripping wet. You will still feel the weight. However, it glides along pretty serenely in a kind of ocean liner kind of way. It's not too slow to steer, but it really depends what you're coming from, of course. If you're coming from a sports bike, you'll think, wow, this is heavy and slow to steer. You're coming from a Harley, you'll think, wow, this is beautiful. It just arcs from side to side without a care in the world, you know. So it really depends on what you're coming from and what your experience is. But I would say that within the context of what this bike is for and its intended target audience, I would say that, you know, the bottom line is the sort of person that's going to buy, say, a Goldwing or some kind of kitchen sink tourer is going to appreciate the key aspects of this bike. They want to maybe ride from Georgia, where I live, to the Keys in Florida, sort of 600-700 miles, and they may want to do it possibly even in a day, but more likely 2 days, and they want to sit on the long flat highways in Florida and just sit there at 70-80 miles an hour all day long and not have to worry about what the weather's doing or any, you know, frivolous things such as that. Basically, they want to just glide along like they're on a executive express machine. So in that respect, this is kind of like, say, a 7 Series BMW, or, you know, an A8 Audi. It's exactly what you expect. It's a gentleman's express. It's not going to excite and thrill a young man looking to get his kicks, but you already know that, right? But in terms of making your life easy, this is up there. Now, in terms of competition, I mentioned the Goldwing, and I think realistically that is the key and perhaps only competition that we are really concerned about here. I think the bottom line is they're probably the two bikes you're most concerned about. Which should you go for? Well, I would say in terms of those two bikes, the Honda requires a little bit more frequent servicing, 4,000 rather than 6,000, but its valve adjustments are slightly longer. Instead of 18, which they are on this, I believe they are 24 on the Honda Goldwing. So swings and roundabouts there. The main key difference, I would say, is that whether you want to have a dual clutch transmission DCT option, which the Honda has and this doesn't. Personally, I'm a huge fan of DCT in this kind of bike where, you know, you want to waft along effortlessly, not worrying about, you know, the effort of changing gear and what revs you're at. Just opening the throttle, rolling it on and off, changing the rider modes if the mood takes. In that respect, the Honda is a clear winner. But in most other respects, the BMW kind of forges ahead. It has a better TFT, better interface, it has arguably better electronics, it's got better suspension, better brakes, and handles better with better ground clearance. The one thing I would say is that if I was buying a K, I wouldn't buy the GTL. I would probably buy the Bagger. It's a hell of a lot lighter, the seat is a bit higher, giving more leg room, the seat is more comfortable in my personal opinion, and that will be most definitely the one for me. And if the wind protection bothered me after a while, I would probably just put a taller screen on, so it's an easy fix. But the Bagger has the looks and the lightness and the fun factor, so I would be erring that way. But I'm not a huge fan of the seat on this. I don't think it's supposed to be, you know, top of the range and the most comfortable. I find it the least comfortable of the Ks that I have ridden. And I'm not a fan of the extra weight that it comes with, or where it carries the extra weight, which is predominantly the top case and it's high up. And for that reason I wouldn't choose the Grand America either. I think if I wanted to do truly big miles, 2-up, Grand Touring going fast, I would buy the GT. And if I wanted to do you know, weekends away, day trips, solo stuff, look cooler and have better ground clearance, then I would just go with the K16B. That would be fine. You know, better ground clearance compared with the Goldwing, that is. They're all much of a muchness in terms of the actual ground clearance in the K series. Now, as for problems, there aren't really any known problems, I would say, with this. I think there was a couple of issues with very early bikes, all sold years ago, and as far as reliability, it's a pretty sound option. I would say in terms of residual values, the Goldwing's going to have better residual value, I would imagine, and that's bucking the trend for most Hondas and most Japanese bikes, just purely because the Goldwing, as I say, is a legend, and I fully expect it to be worth a few more dollars come trading, although it depends what you're trading in for. Of course, a BMW against a BMW usually gives good trading values, and you know, if you're trading against a Honda, of course there's very little, there's nothing that's worth, you know, costs as much as a Honda. So it depends what the value of the Honda is at the time you come to sell, you know. But through here, but so I think, you know, getting nearer to the conclusion, this is not a bike for me personally. Am I a fan of BMW 6s? Yeah, absolutely. I've always liked the Bagger version. I've always greatly admired the engineering in the 6-cylinder. It really feels like it would you know, do a million miles, this thing, it's not particularly stressed, and it definitely has a power advantage over the Honda. Where the Honda scores, of course, is the accessibility of its torque. It's not in its outright torque, which is a bit lower than this, and the horsepower is way down on this. But with the Honda, you are literally getting maximum torque literally at tick over, and it maintains it for the whole rev range of that particular bike, and that's what makes it feel so effortless to ride. I'd really be torn between the two, because I'm a huge fan of DCT. I love the inherent smoothness of the Honda engine, which feels like it would go forever, and that torque at 0 revs is very beguiling for a bike of this nature. But what I dislike with the Honda is the lack of ground clearance, and that's a big issue, because I tend to ride in a sporty manner, and although that's not really the nature of these bikes, that's just how I ride. So although sometimes I'm cruising along like this, appreciating the comfort and the toys and the yada yada yada, sometimes you want to get your kicks, and you want to start throwing it around in a way that it wasn't really designed to do. And it can do that to an extent, the Honda, but you soon start scraping pegs. So it's a limitation you have to accept with buying the Honda. I've never had such problems with the K. I think if I owned one, maybe I would. Sooner or later I'm going to find the limits of the ground clearance and start grinding out the peg tips, but it's going to be much further over than the Honda in terms of lean angle. And certainly in all the test bikes I've had, which have often been dealers' bikes or friends' bikes, so I've been that little bit kinder to them than if I had a press bike, for instance. Then take my side of the road as well, why don't you? Then you know, it's never been a problem for me. I've never ground a peg tip, and you know, you can have some sport touring fun on beautiful roads like this. It's just, you know, it's a joy to ride, and you don't have to be changing a million modes and dialing in, you know, level 6 traction control. Just twist the throttle, put it in gear, and go, or put it in gear and twist the throttle. That's a little bit better. And let's give it a slight lean here. Yeah, no problem. No problem. This is for this type of bike, if it's what you want and you're used to heavyweight bikes and you feel better, more secure on them, you want to cruise around, not busting the hell out of speed limits. Yeah, good machine. GTL wouldn't be for me personally, but I can understand that somebody that does big miles every year, you sort of do 20-30,000 miles, you like to take your partner on the back, you like to load it up and go cross country, you like to ride all year round in all weathers, and you get on with the ergonomics of this bike in terms of its seat comfort and the screen and all the rest of it, then yeah, what's not to like? I think it's a good machine, and you're going to be pretty happy with it overall. Just not for me personally, but that's bikes, isn't it? Not every bike is for us, and what bikes aren't for us are definitely, most definitely the right bike for other people. So this is just one man's point of view, and my point of view today is that BMW built a great 6-cylinder bike, and the K1600 GTL is a very good bike. It's just not for me personally, although I would never say never to potentially buying a K1600B in my future one day. Alright, sayonara for now. Have a great week, guys. Speak to you soon. Bye.
Hey you, if you want to become one of the Ride On people, don't forget to subscribe. Ride often, ride carefully, ride on.